Um, this next story, this one's weird. So I like what's happening, but a lot of people are very mad. Um, CA, or Creative Assembly, they do the Total War games, have said that they're going to that Total War Three Kingdoms, which came out like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, has received its final update and won't be supported anymore. And so people were very mad about that because it's still pretty new. I think there's only one Total War that's newer than that. I really enjoyed the game. I still really enjoy the game. I don't know how much continued development these games need, or if there's any claims that demanded be fixed. So I don't know why people are pissed off about that. But they're moving that team. It looks like they're going to focus on creating a Romance of the Three Kingdoms game, which I don't know if it's going to be like the old ones that were made back in like the 2000s. But I really like those because they were kind of like a Crusader Kings 3 in a way, where there was some strategy to them, but there's also like house politics and dynamics and family arranging and like having children and stuff like that. And I always love those type of games that have those options. So I don't know if it's going to be like that or if it's just Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the Chinese tale, which I believe is open source. And they're doing a game that's just based on that. So we'll have to see. But I love the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the stories that I know from it. And I really liked Three Kingdoms in general because I just really love Chinese history. And I think like in America and in the West, broadly, there's very little Chinese content, like really good games set in China. I think this, like Assassin's Creed, I think did a Chinese one on like the Game Boy or the PSP. But I always wanted like a full Chinese Assassin's Creed, like cultures that I have way less familiarity with. So I think more games set in China will be cool. Again, I just really love the history, and I think Total War, every one of their games are pretty good. They're not all bangers, but they have a lot of bangers, and they're all pretty good. So more from them is better for me.
I put 104 hours into Total War Three Kingdoms, which isn't a whole lot. It's not a whole lot considering it takes about 40 hours to actually complete a file. But I enjoyed it. It seemed kind of like a not as good version of Civilization 6. That's kind of how I felt about it. I learned how to play it, and
Is that how you feel? Is that how you feel about Total War in general?
Three Kingdoms was the first Total War game I ever played.
Oh,
yeah.
How did I not get you playing Total War games before?
I don't know. I'd seen it, but the person who showed it to me, I didn't really trust their taste. It was kind of this weird person, and I was in the barracks, and he's like, "Come over to my barracks and let me show you."
Pecoraro.
No, it wasn't Pecoraro. It was so I didn't really trust it. And then Three Kingdoms was coming out, and it was kind of hyped up, and it's like, okay, I'll give it a shot. But I'm looking at it on Steam here, and it's got mostly positive reviews, but the recent reviews are mostly negative. Is that because?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, from what I understand, it was getting review bombed because they did their final update, and they're not going to keep developing.
Maybe it's kind of like no more free stuff type of thing, where it's like,
well, I don't know. So, how do I say this carefully without it being taken out of context? The Chinese gaming base of players are very particular about any game that has to do with China or a game that they like that doesn't have Chinese support. I've seen it on several games where they were popular games, but they hadn't released Chinese support yet, and they would get review bombed. You'd see discussions, a lot of vitriol. And I don't think it's, because they're Chinese. I think you're just talking about a population that large, so that any negativity that comes from that population is going to seem larger in volume, just because mathematically it is. Not that they're more particularly aggressive than American gamers. We're quite the fucking neckbeard assholes too. But I do think especially games that touch on Chinese or China, and they're very nationalistic people typically, so they they want to be represented. And this was kind of one of the very first really big games to really kind of represent mainstream games, really represent China culture. So I could see that being some of it. Again, it could also be just 14-year-old nerdos in general being like, yeah, I want more stuff. But I didn't. Maybe I have to look too deeply, so correct us if we're wrong in the comments. But I didn't see anything where it was like, oh, you have this glaring game-breaking bug and you're not fixing it. That's why you're getting, because that I could understand.
It's probably that Chinese Winnie the Pooh ass motherfucker hiring a bunch of government officials to write reviews.
Yeah, dude. Dude, leave Winnie the Pooh alone, dude.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to touch on, though, about the Total War is there's aspects of it that are similar to Civilization and are worse than Civilization because the main focus of the game isn't the overland map, which is weird because you spend a lot of time on that map upgrading your cities and control points and the nodes. However, the fucking balls of the game, that meaty ass of the game is the real-time battle, and having thousands of troops that you can control. And like my first game was Rome, the first one, and god damn, that game blew me away so much as like a younger gamer. And I really like what they've been doing with the series. I recommend checking out the Warhammer one. Warhammer 1's my favorite by far because I don't know, adding magic and adding all these systems that you couldn't add into a typical history one just made it really cool. And they have so many races and they're more unique, because it's easier to be unique when you're like a mutant rat versus a lizard man than if I'm a Roman guy from the south of Italy or a Roman guy from the north of Italy, So it's easier to have wider ranges in the art style and the playability of the characters. So that one's really good. What I did like, though, about this one in particular was the Three Kingdoms. What it did was it took the historical ones that they've always done, and then it took a bit of the magic from Warhammer. And they, instead of making a purely historical, like Chinese history battle, it was inspired by the Three Kingdoms storylines. And so you have these famous historical characters who are more myth than historical at this point. And you get this kind of really good blend that I scratched an itch for me of having that reality there, having that history there, but not being dominated by the history, being like, you know what, though, we are going to have a little bit of magic, we're going to have a little bit of this and that.
It's a game.
And with the Chinese myth, it works so well. So big fan of those series.